Hey there, this is Natalie, and I wanted to thank you for checking out To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. I am very excited because recently I celebrated the podcast's first birthday. And what better way to celebrate than to try and build up this community of tolerators and gather them all in one space? To do that, I launched our Patreon where you can make a monthly contribution to the podcast and get some amazing benefits like early access to episodes, ad-free episodes, some virtual hangout time with me and other tolerators, and other ways to really allow us to get to know one another. Any support that you can give to the podcast will be so helpful in the second year to help me elevate the content and grow our community. There is a link in the show notes that contains all the information you need to help the podcast grow. I love and appreciate every one of you. Happy birthday, Team Tolerator. Hey Tolerators, this is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, the show where my guest and I chat about how we have so many roadblocks to building lasting friendships and relationships due to the oppressive systems placed by people anxious they're about to lose their power over us. Today, we have a great guest to help me process why it gets so hard maintaining and making adult friendships. Marissa Meizz is the creator of No More Lonely Friends. It's a community she built for strangers to make friends around the world in safe places. Because of COVID, people were struggling and are still struggling to reconnect with others, and this safe place community they've built inspires people to venture out of their comfort zone and meet someone new. This can lead to a more positive world by encouraging others to be kind and using social media for good, which you know is something that I'm always a proponent of, and positive outlooks. Social media can often exasperate negative feelings. Stories of loneliness took a turn for the better. No More Lonely Friends turned into a friendship movement with a global reach and how to look at the world and life in a more positive outlook. It's everything that we do here on To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. Thank you so much, Marissa, for being here with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so I am always so shocked because when I tell people that I'm going to record with you, they don't know about the TikTok drama, which must mean I spend a lot of time on TikTok or a lot of time listening to podcasters based in New York who know about TikTok and what happened. So what ended up happening?
Basically, a guy named Drew posted a video saying, hey, if your name's Marissa, you live in New York City, basically overheard your friends talking poorly about you and not wanting to invite you to this party. And as petty as it sounds, it is what it is. And basically from that, I got sent the video so many times. It was just a relapse over and over and over and over again. And then, it came back to me. Me and Drew talked about it the next day. We met up. And from there, I started my own friendship group with strangers all over the world and in person as well. And we just started No More Lonely Friends, and we did a meetup in the park, and it turned into hundreds of people showing up. And then I started doing them all around the world, basically. I did a little tour last year. It was 30 different meetups, 4 different countries, and just all around the world, even Europe.
So amazing. If I'm remembering correctly, they were friends that you had made through your the job that you had, correct?
Yeah.
So did you expect anything like that to happen with those people?
It didn't catch me off guard necessarily, which is the sad part, because I kind of, I instantly, when I heard about it, I knew who it was. You know what I mean? So that was kind of one of the things where I just was not shocked, and it sucks to say that, but I did it and I was like, okay, that's it. And I moved on, and yeah, I haven't talked to them since.
And that's probably for the best. As someone who was always told as a child that I was too dramatic and took up too much space in the room, it's my nightmare. It's literally, I leave a room and I'm like, okay, and now they're all voting me off the island and they're listing off all of my crimes. And And it's the thing that keeps you up at night. Like, if you're socially anxious like I am, you're just waiting for something to like that to almost happen to you. And I think you took that event and made such a positive outlook, and you were so like strong during it all and composed and everything, which I'm sure it could have been easy.
Yeah, I mean, it was, obviously I don't post every single thought I have online, but it was awful in some ways, but it was also really rewarding in some ways because I learned like kind of who was there for me and who wasn't. And also I got to meet people that really cared. And that was like kind of the benefit of it all, for sure. Reward.
Awesome. Speaking of work friends, I was just musing over this today about how when you're an adult, the natural progression of things is I made friends because they were in my neighborhood. I made friends because they were at my high school. I made friends because they were in whatever I did after high school. And now I have like work as a core place to make friends. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, making friends at work is just like trauma bonding over capitalism.
100%. Yeah, it literally is. And I think the number one thing that like people ask me is, why is it so hard to make friends as an adult? And I think that the number one thing is that one, we're literally in a constant cycle of a 9 to 5 that you only see the same people every day. And on top of that, you have no other kind of time to be social, I guess, and if you are, then where do you meet these people? When do you meet these people? And I literally get so worked up about it because I work for myself. So it's one of those things where do I meet these people? Because I don't have a office to go into or whatever it is. So once I kind of was put in that position, I was like, how do I meet people? I moved to a new city. I didn't know anyone. How do I walk up to someone on the street and, hey, you want to be friends? Well, that's what I did, but it was not very successful sometimes, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And I think especially after COVID, I've noticed that all of my favorite places where I felt very comfortable that at least like enough of the bartenders or someone would know me, that they would envelop me into whatever they were doing and I could go by myself, also became really cliquey. And I think it was a natural progression because you don't want to interact with strangers anymore. It's like we lost our flow with that.
It's like almost awkward. You're just like, how do I socially interact with people anymore? How do I go about not making small talk? And that's small talk needs to be banned forever. But it's just, it is so difficult. And it's just that awkward, like, what do you do? Oh, why do you live in New York? And then you just stop and you're just like, okay, unless you find them on a dating app and you know everything about them, it's like, okay, where do you go from there,
Yeah. And then I think about that all the time too so I have like a couple of close friends that I've maintained contact with once I've moved away from a job or something. But then you think about my best friend from high school and I get so tripped up in, do you remember there was like a solid chunk of time where this person was the most important person of your friendship circle, and now they're a person that you don't even know what they do for a living?
And it's also just you grow out of them or they grow out of you, and it's no harm, no foul, but a lot of people take offense to that, and it's like, okay, I've moved on with my life and I hope they've moved on with theirs. That's great. No bad blood, but it is crazy to see like, wow, then there's the people that, peaked in high school or whatever, and they just think you're, the elite or whatever. And you're like, okay, what are we doing here?
It's almost silly and comical at some point. And one of the things I have written down is I feel like we were given a false narrative on what adult friendships look like, especially like, so I'm 33, I'm an elder millennial, from the caves. They let me on the internet from time to time. And we had things like Friends, How I Met Your Mother, Gossip Girl was in high school, Sex and the City, shows that revolved around single people in their 20s and adulthood. And it was like,
I was saying those shows are just attractive friend groups that they all like date each other.
Right. Oh, and dating in adulthood when you've moved out of like if you don't want to like trauma bond and sleep with the
Yeah.
person that you met at work, then how do you even do it off of an app? But we were like sold this idea of adult friendship where it's like it all just revolves around going out and everyone has something to do. And then you like commingle and you swap partners a bunch of times. And then it ends with a wedding and then everyone's set.
You're just like, wow, this is not how real life is.
No.
But thank you.
Yeah.
TV.
And then you get out here and you're like, Ted Mosby never had to go to work. I don't even know what his office looked like.
Who, and all these unrealistic, but it is true when, especially TV shows, I mean, even in New York, especially, like, a lot of, hey, do you want to hang out? Means, hey, do you want to go get a drink? Hey, do you want to meet at a bar? Hey, do you want to do this? And it's just, it gets so old.
I know. I am not a very good bar person. If you don't have a signature cocktail that tastes like pineapple or candy, I don't know what to order.
I get that.
I don't know what any of the drinks are named. I can't go to hole in the wall bars and get anything besides a Coke. And then I get bored. If we're not dancing or we have this new bar downtown that'll let you at least like do axe throwing or something, like, yes.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I think people are starting to get it. Like you have to draw people out of their house because people will just now stay at home and drink.
Yeah. I mean, it's what else, that's what we were doing the last 2 years. So what else do they know now,
I made my house so much fun during the pandemic. I filled it with activities and soothing methods and this podcast, and people really have to work hard to get me out of it.
I mean, I moved during the middle of the pandemic, so I was like, now? Like, what am I? I don't even have anyone to invite over. Like, I don't even know,
One of the odd ways I made friends during the pandemic, and it was with people who had at least one person who had just moved to town. I did a ridiculous Dayton online Zoom version of Love is Blind.
I love that for you. Wow.
Thank you. It never aired. It's the bane of my existence because I would have used it as a reel to get onto Real Love is Blind or this ultimatum show That's Wild and never have to work again because I could just like hold up lotion and be like,
that's exactly what they do. That's what all of them do on reality TV shows. Yeah.
Yes. And I would have endured the Real Love is Blind to never have to work again. But my friends who are still my friends after the show were like, we did it to make friends during the pandemic. Like I did it for my reality TV show moment. And to maybe date, I don't know. Yeah. But they're like, no, we needed friends. I was like, oh. And now we're all
perfect. Okay.
I go, now we're all friends, but I, as a single 30-something, also find myself having ridiculous age gaps between me and my friends. I went to come from away last week and I asked my friends how old they were during 9/11. And one of my friends had the gall to look me in my face and be like, I was 5.
I wasn't born. Oh, I was like, what you say? I wasn't born yet?
No, kindergarten. I think I shoved him. That was unacceptable. I was like 5. I was 13.
Yeah. It really do be like that.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I have been struggling with post-COVID is it's one thing to meet people and then like have people that you can go out with. But when you try to like really take the things that you're hyped about and intermingle that with other people because you are a single person who doesn't have a partner, it's like pulling teeth to get
it gets
people.
Hard. Yeah. It gets difficult to also kind of, that's why I like the meetups for No More Lonely Friends stuff because it's outside and there's no kind of middle ground. So like you kind of have to do what you make of it. So when you meet people in a bar, you're usually only going to hang out in bars. If you meet people in a park, you can kind of do anything from there, So that's why it kind of works so well as like you're not bonding over anything specific. It's just whatever you want to make it, you could do that,
That is really great. How have you felt like when you're mingling people together, How do you feel like icebreakers go, or what is the best way to approach someone and be like, I'm open to friends?
Yeah, so it depends. Are you talking about at the meetups or outside of them?
Any and all of it. People
At the
need tips.
meetups, the thing is nice that everyone is there for the same reason of like
Hmm.
meeting people, mingling, socializing, seeing people again in person, and being outside. And so I feel like free flowing conversations come from that just because you're outside, you're there for the same reason, etc. When you're out, so someone earlier today, and I just met them, and he was like, "Hey, I'm blah blah blah." I said, "Cool. Like, what are you passionate about?" And I think that's a really cool thing because then they don't feel that obligation. I didn't ask him what he does. It was a what are you passionate about? Because then it comes from a heartful stance of then they'll start naming things that he likes, not that, oh, I'm an architect or whatever he is. Like it's not like, oh cool, that's great. Anyway, it's oh I'm passionate about this. He'll name a bunch of things, right? And then you'll have something to kind of connect on because maybe you have something in common. If you don't, then you kind of can cross paths with things on that you're both passionate about, or it opens up a floor of conversation that people love to talk about instead of saying like, oh, let's talk about my job. It's, oh, let's talk about things I really love and, passionate about my family, my friends, this, that, hanging out, making this, making art. And it's an open floor for kind of a better conversation and an icebreaker for people.
Yeah. When people ask me what I do for a living now after the pandemic, I always preface it with, I hate my job, but I am more than happy to tell you what I do to cope with that. And like,
See, but that's no one wants to no one wants to talk about it. Like you're
no.
already in a 9 to 5 or whatever you do, and it's a lot of people don't like their job. So why would you want to talk about it outside of your job?
Well, and then when you make friends within your job and you already know that you don't like the way that you're spending your time, all of your
Yeah,
social time revolves around like, I can't believe Nancy did this, or I can't believe someone left this on the copier and all of it. And you're just bitching.
yeah, and it's just so kind of be surrounded by that because why would you again? Why would you want to talk about it outside of it if that's what you're going for? I don't know.
I am like the ultimate hype person. Like, I want to be excited about the things that I'm excited, like theater. Theater is one of my big ones. I can talk about it for hours. But I also want to hype up whatever it is you're passionate about. So it's like, if you're a person who has been to every metro park from here to Texas, I want to hear about every park. And I feel like we don't lean ourselves to actually going deep with people anymore. It's just like what do you do for fun? And then they go, oh, I go to parks. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, and like what like and it's also because when people, especially in New York and stuff, when people are asking me like, "Hey, how do you use or like how do you make new friends and stuff like that?" Like I'll always be like, "Try to join a rec league." They're like, "I hate sports." I'm
Right.
like, "Okay, do a painting class." They're like, "I don't paint." I'm like, "But that's the point. Like you're doing something new, or So it's just when you come and meet somebody, I don't know. It just depends, obviously, like where you meet them or what your relationship with them is, or if you met them on an app versus in person. But I think that always it's just you can find that middle ground. You just
Hmm.
have to push for it sometimes.
Yeah,
And a lot of people don't want to be pushed out of their comfort zone, but I feel like you have to if you want to make new friends.
that's true. What about maintaining adult
Mm,
friendships? So I am a person who does not, I keep in touch with one person from high school and like
sure.
absolutely no one from college. So how do you maintain an adult friendship once you've like glommed onto one?
I think it depends. So like I have a lot of long distance friends.
Hmm.
A lot of my friends I've moved a lot in my life, but I also a lot of my friends have moved in other states for jobs or after college, whatever it was. And one is just checking in, even if it doesn't need to be a full blown, 3 hour long conversation, but there's those people that love that. I think randomly I'll just check in on some of my friends if I have some free time, or I love FaceTiming. I'm a big FaceTime gal, so I'll just like FaceTime and be like, hey, just really quickly, I just want to say what's up and like see what you're doing, like checking in on your job, your life, or this, your friends. Which is a big thing because I feel like that just shows obviously you care. If it's an in person, like, hey, you're hanging out thing, I love having people just like come over and doing like little dinner parties, or just like a Thursday night hangout. There's like no, or just like, hey, you want to come over and watch TV? Like, hey, you want to work from home together? Hey, you want to, for me, it's like make this video together, or like hang out. And so I love doing that stuff, but it's really dependent on kind of your relationship with them. I'm a big person that my relationships are very chill, very like subtle. I'm like, I don't need to do some extravagant adventure. Like, I love that. Like, great. Even if it's just walking around the city, it's just going on a walk. Like, I don't care if you're in Kansas, like, you can go on a walk, you know? And so it kind of just showing that you're there and that you care, share and there and care. But it's very much so you don't need to go above and beyond every single time. Just showing that, like, hey, by the way, like, I know you're busy right now. I'm just checking in. Just want to say hi. Hey, if you're busy next week, or hey, if you're free next week, or whatever it is, you always want to just show that you're a person in their life that cares, even if you're not hanging out, even if you're just saying hello. So maintaining it is also just a respect of maintaining yourself, like maintaining you being a person in their life.
I have had in the past, in my adulthood, really volatile emotional friendships where it's like you become friends and then that evolves into we have to do everything together. If you're at yoga, I'm at yoga. We always have dinners at Wednesday night. And I feel like the more realistic that you can be, and even I struggle with this because I get insecure about everyone who is your friend also has their own schedule going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you forget they have other friends. It's like weird to say, but like you forget like your best friend has other friends. Like,
right. Or you forget that maybe sometimes they don't want to leave the house because they can watch The Ultimatum from their couch with their cat. And I always have to remind myself that every like unanswered invitation isn't always like a permanent, no, they hate you. Way to go. You asked them to the wrong restaurant.
Yeah. And that's also huge kind of thing that you have to work on as a person. Mm-hmm. So upset if I didn't get one invite, or so upset if my friends were hanging out with other people or something like that. We had to work on that kind of like FOMO aspect / self-worth aspect of knowing that I'm still okay if we don't hang out once or whatever it is, or if they go somewhere, you know. And I think the older I got, the more I had to just accept it because we'll have other friends.
Well, and then at least me, I became an adult during the internet age. So you wrote to me about social media and how it exasperates all of the things that make you anxious about making friends. So the FOMO aspect where it's like, oh, no one thought that I was fun enough to also be invited to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge factor of who was there that didn't want to invite me. Mm-hmm. And that is what I thought about when that video first came out, was like, why, what was the reason? What was the reason? But they, like, why, what was the problem that they had with me so much that they just made this whole big deal about it? And so I think that you'll always have someone that doesn't like you. I mean, you'll always have someone that you don't like. So move on. Get a new friend that, will take the time to be an actual person in your life that you enjoy.
Exactly. And what for you are like your hallmarks for this is a friendship that I know that I want to carry out for a while?
My green flags of a friendship is obviously like it's a two-way friendship. Like it doesn't have to be every day we're talking as a two-way friendship. A big one is that if they were in the room without you and someone was talking poorly about you, would they stop them, or would they a lot of the times you won't know, but also I think a good friend will, or something you will know is that if you're in the room with someone and they're just talking poorly about their other friends,
oh yeah,
what do you think they're doing as well? But I think there's always a room for criticism, but when it comes to actual like talking shit about somebody, it's just like it's not it, but yeah,
I always find it fascinating how much if I'm with a certain subgroup of friends and we have friends who are doing other things outside of whatever our activity is, how because you're that person's friend, you almost feel like you have the business or the right to fix everything that you deemed is wrong with their life.
And it's not your business. It's also not your job.
Right. Yeah. And as I've gotten older, I've been in the middle of fights like that. I've been kind of just on the peripheral of listening to people talk about that. Mm-hmm. And my whole thing is, if they wanted it, changed, they would change it.
Yeah.
Or no one's living on my timeline. They're living on their timeline.
Everyone's in a different part of life. I don't care if you're 30, you can act like a 19-year-old. It's just the same thing. If you're 19, you can act like you're 50. Who knows? Maybe, it's just dependent on where you were raised, who you were raised by, how you were raised. It just, it's never the same no matter what age or demographic you are.
And I've started to preface things that I'll say to friends with, this is what I need from this conversation. It happened this morning. There's an opportunity at a job that I used to have, but it would probably not be work from home and probably be lots of nights and weekends. And my priority currently is making the podcast and To All the Men I've Tolerated Before, like a brand, something out of it. So you have to like check and balance like all the time, like what would take away from this? What would add to this? And I preface this conversation with, I'm going to give you information. I need you to know that I don't want to be convinced to do this job or to take this job because I've made a choice about it and I don't need to be convinced to think otherwise. Because I think everyone's just trying to be like, well, have you ever thought, I have a friend who always uses the term devil's advocate. It's my most hated phrase.
Yeah, it is. It's just, you don't need to be that. And I would always be that middleman and try to be like, oh no, let me help out. It's just not, it's not it. You don't need to be it.
On another show, I refer to myself as the hostess of all of my relationships. Like I was the concierge of all of my partner's good times. And then
a fixer is what a fixer is what that's me. Trust me. I feel the same way. So.
Oh yeah. It's like, let me take all of my knowledge and all of the ways that I've suffered and make sure that never happens to
you. Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's so bad. Oh, it kills me.
And the thing about being friends with younger people is that you have to watch them make all of those mistakes because they haven't lived through them yet. So you're just sitting there and you're like, okay.
But you have to let them. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem, is that you've been through it, but then they have to experience it to know or to do it or not,
And I think what gets tricky is what quantifies a toxic relationship for me might not be a toxic relationship for you. It could be exactly what you want and or need in that moment.
Yeah. Or it might be traumatic to you, but not someone else. So you think that it's, it's just for your life and not theirs.
I think putting a lot of ourselves on social media or TikTok or podcasting, it makes us believe that we're all sharing this common experience, which we are, but we're all doing it in our own linear pattern. And so it almost gives people like this grandiose idea of like, well, I know better, and then I should just impart that onto you.
Yeah, and it also, I've learned a lot to take kind of other people's problems or whatever, and I would always try to integrate them into my own life to be like, okay, what do I need to change to help them get rid of this problem? And that's not it. You need to let it go. You need to like do your own thing, live your best, and just do your life and not worry about anyone else's, even if you feel like it's your problem. It's not your problem. And it's also not your deal. Right. You don't need to deal with it.
And I think the more that we could understand that people are flawed and we're all flawed in different ways, but we all live in the gray. Just because someone acted this way one time doesn't mean that it's going to be the way they act all the time. I actually had this like conversation with my friend about John Mulaney's divorce. And I was like, I don't care that John Mulaney got divorced. 60% of us get divorced. And they were like, well,
yeah.
I was like, and probably 80% of us need to. So I don't, and he's like, well, he didn't treat his wife very well. So I understand why the public turned against him. I was like, but we also don't know that.
But you also don't know anything about it. You know what I mean? And it's just also not like, you don't know everything about it.
Right. We speculated. That's what happened. We like literally took one incident and then everyone decided to like build a timeline on whether or not he mistreated someone.
Whether that they knew every detail. I'm like, you don't know literally anything.
You don't know literally anything. And that came into play with my parents' own divorce, where I was like, I had to eventually reconcile with both of my parents being single people or not married anymore when I was 22. And you end up learning that, like, just because you have a bird's eye view or a front row seat to something doesn't mean that you actually get all of the details.
Yeah, and I will never, whatever, even if anyone says it's this problem, what it is, you still don't know because you weren't there. You're not in their relationship. You're not in their life. You're not together 24/7, and you just need to step back from that. And that's it. It's the same thing with a friend fight. Even if friends are fighting, it's the same thing. And you will never know the real story unless both of them sit down next to each other and say, this is exactly what happened. And you still don't know if they're lying or not, you know?
And then everyone's perception is always different. So I said a thing, but once I said it, it's up to my audience how it's perceived. And then I also have a little bit of an ownership on that, but also I can't control how everyone is going to take what comes out of my mouth.
Yeah, it's the same thing every single time. It's just, people just need to stop inserting themselves into situations they don't need to insert themselves on.
And I think we were also just like told that eventually this would be easy. Like we would all be mature enough and all of our relationships would even out and it would never be work again.
Yeah, and it's just, it'll, until you die. It'll be a cycle forever. Whoever you run into, no matter who it is, it's always the same.
I used to get really insecure because I change friend groups a lot. Like I don't have contact with anyone in college. I have one person from high school and I rotate through a roster of friends. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is so awful about me that people burn out and then I have to make an entire new group of friends? But I was at a friend's bridal shower and we all had to write down advice for her and no one could figure out what to write on the advice card. And I was like, someone needs to point out that forever is a long time. And they went, no. And I was like, okay, but it is.
I mean, it is forever.
It's a long time. People, when marriage became a thing that would make people richer or something, I don't even know. People were living to like maybe 30. You were married for like maybe 15 years. I go, now people live until they're 90. And I might go through 10 iterations of myself within that marriage. I can't be responsible for you liking all of them.
Yeah. It's just a whole circle of always feeling like you're not you're the problem, but like it's like you have this constant circling of what next, of what do I do, what do I feel, what do I, and it's just a never ending cycle, I feel like.
And what could I have done better?
What could I have done better? Or that lurking question.
Or a thing that I love to say all the time in therapy, I should have known better. I saw all of it coming my way.
But you don't want to know better sometimes.
You didn't actually know better.
Well, after you see it from the outsider's perspective, like a week later or a day later, or even if like you're really heated, and then that's why I'm like, anytime I get angry or something, I'm like, let me take a second and then we'll come back to this, because if I talk right now and I can't see it through, and then you wait a few hours and you're like, cool, I see it through now, we're good, we can talk about it, that's different.
And then what are your red flags with someone who wants to be your friend?
Red flags would be they just like talk poorly about their other friends when they're not around. They have nothing positive to say. I can't do consistently, like, either if they're upset about life or their job or whatever, I just can't be around negative people all the time. Another thing would be probably they get like territorial over, like, you can't have another life like outside of them. And they get upset if you like cancel on stuff, like in a sense of like, if I say, hey, like I'm not mentally there today, like can we reschedule, and they just make you feel awful for it, that's just it's not for me. Or they always bail. They always flake. It's not it.
Isn't that such a delicate balance now, what we know about emotional and mental health and how people have to have an opportunity to get out of something that they don't want to do? But then on the flip side of it is that you are flaky to the people who try to make plans with you.
It's it's just so toxic. It's so toxic. It's not good. It's not. And it's also so unhealthy for them to make you feel like that. Like, I'm working on myself, please.
But I have been both the flake. I have been the person who forces themselves to do the thing to make the other person happy. And I've also been that other person who's pissed off that their plans fell through.
Yeah, but I mean, when it comes to flaking, I feel like flaking, if you're just like, hey, can't go, sorry, and you just like leave. If there's like a legitimate reason, and it's, you know, it's just kind of one of those things where, again, like I said before, in a sense of, oh, hey, I just like mentally can't, I can't do it. I can't get out of the house. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overstimulated. Or you're just, hey, I'm not in a good space right now. That's kind of different. But if you're just like, hey, I can't go, sorry, and you do something else, oh, that's not cool, and it's also not respectful. But you know, I mean, if you're canceling on that, sure. But if you're getting upset at someone for it, I feel like you have to kind of dig into why you're getting upset over it, and if they've done this before, or if you're just upset because you made the plans like super advanced, or you know, whatever it is.
I just listened. I mean, it was weeks ago while I was cleaning out my closet, but I was listening to some show, and someone said that one of their red flags in friendships was, I can't celebrate myself around them.
Oh my god, that's my number one. Like, I'm getting stressed thinking about it. That is my number one, especially because I feel like I'm going through it right now. I've definitely noticed who celebrates my wins and who envies my wins.
Me
and there's
too.
a huge my mind is turning right now. Yeah, that's I think the biggest red flag for sure.
And if it's not even envy, if it's just like literal flatlined apathy, like I said something huge that I did and it just fell onto a blank face, like I'm like, don't you understand that this is cool? I was like,
it's a big deal.
Yeah. I thought it was cool last week that you got a new accounting job. I pretended math was cool.
Yeah, and I think that there's I just watched a talk with Brene Brown about like envy and jealousy in the anger family, and it's not. Envy and jealousy are shared in the same family, and then anger is something completely different. And the jealousy factor of jealousy is such a harsh, toxic word for that, but it is true. Like, it's, people can't get past the fact that they feel like, oh, I deserve that, and they don't. Or even if they do deserve that, like, why can't I get it? Or why can't I, you know? So it gets really toxic, and people start resenting their friends because of it, or their family, or whatever it is, because they haven't reached that yet. Not that they can't reach it, it's just they haven't reached it yet, or they feel like they deserve it more than you.
Yeah. I get into this place where it feels like I'm 15 years old again and no one understands, because my hobbies look different than other people's, or that I care about them more than I care about my job. And that's something that we don't perpetuate in our society, that people just are like, oh yeah, there you go again, do your thing. And it gets frustrating because I'm like, don't you understand that this is a cool thing that I'm doing? But you also don't want to over explain that, because then you're attention baiting.
Yeah, and it's people, I mean, attention baiting, like, people like freak out about that stuff because they think it's like exactly what I want. And I'm like, please, I have better things to do. Thank you.
Right. Oh, I had somewhere else that I was going with that. Another one, I think that, speaking of jealousy and envy, I feel like jealousy and envy are lasting, where anger can be very fleeting because it's more of a reaction.
Yeah, it is a reaction, and it's also, the jealousy and envy goes towards resentment, and then that's a long-term thing where you just can't get rid of it. Like, once I resent someone, it kind of just stays there forever. It's like the ick, but in real life. Like, it's just, it doesn't go away unless it's, something. But that's, again, I have to recheck myself for resentment because it comes from jealousy and envy.
Yeah. And I would love to live in a world where, because we have social media, it means that we are constantly celebrating one another. But there is no one on earth more toxic than a fan group that wants to turn against the thing that all brought them together to begin with.
Yeah, I get that. It's just, it gets really, especially with, like, I think about that celebrity couples. Like, once a celebrity couple breaks up, people bring both sides into it, and then they think they know everything about their relationship, and they shit on one person because they think that they did the wrong or something happened to the point where they need to like really attack the other person. You're like, what is the point? Why are we doing this?
And I think we just assume that everyone is just like all knowing and they know that everything that you know. One of my favorite podcasts, the fan group turned because they didn't like the guest that was on the podcast, and they were like, don't you know how abusive they are? And they've made me feel this way and that way. And I'm like, okay, but maybe they did get paid to have that person on, and I'm cool with them making money because we all need to make money. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, you have no right to include yourself into that because you have no idea, again, what is going on behind the scenes or whatever it is.
We have such an ownership towards everyone now because we get to see everything, or so we believe.
Quote, yes.
Yes. So now we feel like we own your content, or like I did have, this is a former friend, but I can't even remember what celebrity we were talking about, but I was like, I don't get it because you really respect that person's work. And they were like, well, that's the thing. I get to build them up with everyone else, but I also get to decide when they get torn down. And I was like,
Yeah. I can't do it. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work in the end. And you just gotta, you always also with friend groups and friends, like even new friend relationships, I feel like you always have to build that trust and that aspect up and up and up and up. And then if it gets like kind of broken down into, you're like, okay, that's we had something in the beginning and it just doesn't work anymore.
I always think that friendship breakups are more volatile than unpartnering with people.
Yeah. They're brutal.
They're brutal, and they almost affect every other relationship that you have in your life.
Yeah, I mean, that's like if you date in the friend group, you know what I mean?
And then, so I also think that when you break up with a friend, it opens you up for even more criticism from the people in your life. And now they're going to realize that you're flawed and also don't want anything to do with you. It's like a big stack of dishes about to crash to the floor.
The friend breakups are interesting too because a lot of people don't feel like they have the right to do it because, when it comes to, I think that friend relationships, and real partnership relationships, like partner relationships, are the same. I think they should be treated the same. I think they should be treated with respect, the same values, the same everything because, obviously it's a little different when it comes to like partnerships because it's, other feelings are involved. But when it comes to platonic relationships, it should be respected in the same way of like, you still need a reason out, I guess, but you don't really like love anymore. If you're not feeling the friendship anymore, you're allowed to leave.
Right.
And people don't feel like they have that because they feel like I need a reason. Oh, they screwed me over. Oh, they're so mean to me. Like, no, if you're not feeling it anymore, you're not there. You don't want to stay in a relationship with someone you don't love anymore. You don't want to stay in a friendship with someone you can't stand anymore. It is what it is. And people don't treat it that way, but it needs to be treated that way.
The last time that I lost a friendship, someone outside of the friendship told me that they hoped I didn't fall into this trap where I saw one of us as good and one of us as bad, one of us as the hero, one of us as evil, because we played the role that we needed to play in one another's lives until we didn't.
Yes. And that's where the resentment almost steps in. That's when people start resenting each other because you're forcing each other to be around each other and you can't break it off and no one feels like they can break it off.
Right. One of my other red flags with relationships and friendships, besides not being able to celebrate with you, is also you're not at a point where you can come to me and give me a heads up that something is going wrong.
That's a comfortability thing. That's feeling comfortable in a relationship enough to be able to be like, hey, don't be mad at me. You know what I mean? I with my close friends now that I feel like I can cancel on or whatever, I feel like I can quote unquote, that's, depending on the situation, but I feel like I know who my real friends are who would never make me feel that if I was like, hey, it's just not it. I just got a text like an hour ago of someone that I was supposed to meet up with later that said, hey, I just don't think it's going to be check for next week. And she knew, I'll see you next week, whatever. I'm not gonna be like, are you kidding? You know, like, how rude. It's like, no, you have to respect how they feel, or you don't know what they're going through. Maybe something just happened in their life that they don't want to talk about, and that's fine.
And I feel like rejection is so tricky in friendships because you're like quote unquote not supposed to be rejected in in your friendships. It's supposed to be the safe place from rejection.
Sure.
But you have to like realize that when you say no to someone, I'm completely fine with you being upset with the no. Like no hurts and it's a volatile word. But I don't expect you to make your hurt my problem, to just like volley that back at me.
But a lot of people can't separate that, and that's why I feel like a lot of people are going into therapy now because like they realized that the last 2 years of your complete ranting for 2 hours, like, and a lot of friendships turn into just only checking in on them when something bad happens or something good happens, and they don't. It's fine to hear their highs and lows sometimes, but when it's consistently a lot all the time, it's like, hey, I have you trauma dump on me every single time we talk, and that's okay to say.
I listened to the My Favorite Murder book, Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered, at the gym, and one of their therapists, I think it was Karen's, told them about the 4-to-1 ratio. In 5 interactions with your friends, 4 of them should be positive, and 1 of them should be like the doom and gloom, my life is on fire. And you have to be responsible for maintaining the 4-to-1 ratio in all of your friendships. But you also have to check your friends when they get the ratio wrong. And I have found that people are so unaware that you're not supposed to just like immediately walk into someone else's house and be like, this is what sucked at work, and my dog is sick, and my mom's a bitch, and all of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's on top of all the trauma dumping. Like, that's, people don't, if you have a bad day, maybe they had a really good day and you come in swinging, and they're like, well, now I feel like I can't share my good news because you just came in like, like going crazy about how awful your day was. And now you feel bad and you can't celebrate your wins.
Yes. And then there's also the trickiness that is friendship advice where it's like, oh, I see you in this very hurt and volatile state. I will now tell you all of the ways that I would do better and fix it.
Yes. No one wants to hear that. That's when you have to ask of, do you want advice or do you just want me to listen?
Yes. And that's like such not in our vernacular yet, but people are requesting it, and we just haven't rewritten the code in our friend. Like, being a good friend means that I do fix everything for you, and I do tell you why I would have been smarter about this situation, so you don't keep doing it.
And you can ask like, hey, or you can like say something in the terms of, hey, I went through this already. Like, let me help you, or like, let me give you advice if you want it. But you can't just go pushing your losses onto other people because you've been through it, and they don't want your unsolicited advice sometimes.
How do you feel like our society? There's a focus on the podcast on the patriarchy and misogyny, but we also love to bitch about capitalism. We love to hate on capitalism.
We really do. We really do.
We just love, there are so many things that we can bitch about. But how do you think our society plays a role in it being that much more difficult to make and maintain friendships?
Well, I mean, the largest thing about all of that is literally that no one has time anymore, because 9 to 5 turns into 8 to 7. And then, after work, I still have an email at home. I have this. I got called in. And no one feels like they can say no because they'll feel like they're fired. So that burnout turns into, once we get home from work, I don't want to see anyone. I want to talk to I just want to, I'm so exhausted. I'm mentally exhausted. I'm sad. I'm this. I'm depressed. I can't get out of bed. And that's when that turns into just a waterfall effect of not wanting to outside, not wanting to socialize, not wanting to see your friends because you're depressed and you're sad. And then it turns into loneliness, and that's when the whole entire cycle just restarts, and it's just so sad. Corporate America can suck my ass.
That'll be the tagline of the episode.
Exactly.
Corporate America can like literally just go and walk into the highway and get hit by a semi.
Yeah, all the time. I'm fine with it. Because
what I bring it back all too, and it plays a lot into the patriarchy and misogyny too, is what corporate America and capitalism has made us believe, and it leaks into our school system. I used to be a former teacher, so I love to go off on this, is every minute of our day, we should be fronting and proving our worth.
Yeah. That's the productivity versus worthiness thing that's been going around right now, of like you feel like you're only worthy as much as your productivity that day.
And then it goes beyond like, I'm going to prove to Vanessa that I'm worth being her friend, to, well, not only am I going to prove to Vanessa that I'm worth being her friend, but I'm also going to prove to Vanessa that I'm better at it all than
any other one.
Yes.
Every other friends that she has. Yeah, sure.
Or even just like better than your friend. Like, I feel like we all have such a superiority complex because we're in constant competition.
We're in that. And it is always a tier system. You always want a promotion. You always want to be better. You always want to do this. You always want to prove people how much better you are than them. Yeah.
And I understand why it happens, because if they take all of the minions in the office and they make them feel like they all hate one another and no one knows if they're making the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Then whoever needs to feel on top gets to feel on top. And around here, it was called the Geek Club, and it was on Meetup. And that's very much what happened on that group, where you would go out and do social things, but it was all like we were puppets, and someone who needed to feel powerful through this group got to tell us how we would be friends and when we would be friends. And
that's toxic.
I know. And she didn't care if you didn't like that person. We were all in this group, so you had to include them in whatever you were doing.
Really sounds awful. What is the point of that?
No. And now it's not in existence. And could you imagine why?
Yeah, that's so awful. That's not even like, would make me feel so awful.
And again, there's so much gaslighting and manipulation that comes into play with friendships too, because first and it happens in dating too. You show all of your best qualities. You're like, I'm fun, and I sing and I dance and I tap dance, and I'll pay for everyone's drinks tonight or whatever. And you just put your best foot forward. And then people get lulled into that comfort. And then I have had so many friends where like 6 weeks in, after I've made this intense instant bond with them, I'm like, what just came out of your mouth?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine going to meet a new group of people or something like that, and then trying to put each other again. I'm like, why are we here?
Yeah. So we have 2 traditions on To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. One of them is our biggest growth moment, so our big takeaway, and then we take all of the things that we discussed and we move forward in positivity with a manifestation.
Ooh.
Yes. We get a little witchy with it. What has been your biggest takeaway through this amazing thing that you've done to bring people together?
My biggest takeaway, I think, is stories of people, like how it changed their life. And I didn't much it changed people's life. And like the other day I was hanging out with 2 of my friends, and they were like, oh, this group of like 20 people that I went, oh, by the way, I met them at No More Lonely Friends. And I was like, oh, like what, and it changed their life. And I even look at my own life, and I met all these people through it, and literally my entire life changed. So it is really, that's probably my biggest takeaway, of just seeing how much it's really, really, really impacted other people's lives. And I still don't even see how much it impacted people, but they try to tell me, and I'm like, but impossible, sure. Yeah, I think it's for sure my number one of biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I feel very much the same about podcasting. I've met so many people around the world who I now talk to and text every day, even though it'll be a while until I won't say we won't ever see one another in person, because that makes me sad. But also, that is part of the gig with being on Team Tolerator, Marissa. You get to always be my friend.
Yes! Can't get rid of me now. No,
yeah, you're here. And
I love that so much.
And so if there's ever a No More Lonely Friends event in Dayton, I can't imagine Dayton because we're so small, but Cincy, Columbus, Indy, Chicago, I can get to them, and I will be there. And everyone
keeps asking about Indianapolis.
Yes, Indy's so fun.
Yeah, Seems like it. I really want to come over there at least once.
And I don't have a dog because my cat is abusive, but I will force her to be in one of those backpacks so people have an icebreaker. Like, your cat seems really unhappy in there, and she is.
And she doesn't want to be here. Thank you.
She doesn't, but I force her because everyone else gets to have a dog that they break the ice with.
There you go.
I think my biggest takeaway from trying to maintain all sorts of adult friendships in my life is it takes a lot of fucking grace, and no one tells you that.
Yeah.
So you have to approach every situation and every conversation with your most mature, graceful self. And you also have to be aware that it takes a lot of forgiveness of the people around you, but you also have to forgive yourself of a lot of things too. And let some shit go.
You gotta let that shit go.
You gotta let some shit go.
Let that shit go.
What are you hoping for in the future about either No More Lonely Friends, yourself, anyone who might be struggling with with making friends where they're currently at?
Yeah, future plans for No More Lonely Friends. I just really want to do some like bigger, more inclusive things that, I mean, it already is, but I think I just want to be able to do an ambassador host their own meetups and stuff like that. There's a lot of logistics that go behind it and legals and stuff like that I can't yet. So I have to get that going for sure. And just like growing, honestly, like I want to, really want to hit like 1 million followers this year. And the thing about why I want to get more followers and stuff like that is because I would just want to keep spreading the word about it so that more people know about it. And that's kind of the cool thing about No More Lonely Friends stuff is the more people that know about it, the better. And so it's just better for everyone and not me. It's better for everyone. So that's for sure a thing. I would just say, the way to make friends for sure is stepping out of your comfort zone, and the world will not wait for you. So you have to just kind of do it, and it sucks, and it sometimes is so embarrassing or awkward, but it's if you step into a situation, this is my thing. If you step into a situation saying, try to embarrass me, you can't embarrass me. That's how I get through things is like, if I fall and trip and fall, I will laugh and be like, did anyone get that? Like you have to put yourself in situations that you run your feelings, run your life, do you, live your best life.
When I was younger and bolder, I used to tell people, you're talking to me like you think I have shame. And I don't. I have no shame. Like,
I love that for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that.
Please do. I think my manifestation going forward is I would like to be able to step more out of the 9-to-5 job scene, because I would love to have more time to build a community around either To All the Men I've Tolerated Before, or even just a support group. I think, so I just recorded an episode with my friend about the trials and tribulations of being single and how expensive it gets and how you have to like do a lot of logistic planning and all that. I would love to, my friend was like, you should call it No More Moldy Bread. I would like to have a grocery store club where I can call up 3 or 4 people and we go to the grocery store together and we split up the strawberries, because I can't eat an entire thing of strawberries.
That's funny.
But 4 of us could portion them out, and then I still get the normal amount of strawberries that I can have.
Yeah.
Because when my single ass buys a bag of cuties, I have to eat 3 cuties a day.
A day. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that. And I really only want the 1 cutie. I've always said, if I ever got like a building, I would do a singles only grocery store where it's like, if you're just having a craving for a pudding cup, I will sell you that pudding cup for 75 cents.
That's funny. That's good. That's good. I need to do individual stores.
Yes.
Grocery store for single people.
So I would love to have the time and the energy to put forth some of my extrovert self to use and to start bringing people together in more of a physical setting. I know that the podcast brings people together because they like to chat about it. Sure. But like a physical component to that.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I think that would be great.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm hoping one day I'll get out of corporate America.
You could do it. I believe in you.
People do it. People do it. Speaking of awareness for No More Lonely Friends, please tell my listeners all of the places that they can connect with you.
Yeah, on Instagram, it's just Marissa Meizz and No More Lonely Friends. And then there's also nomorelonelyfriends.com. And on TikTok, I'm also Marissa Meizz. So my last name is Meizz.
Well, and we'll have it all in the Instagram posts and everything. Everything will be tagged. Everything will be in descriptions. Tolerators for our Instagram, it's Men I've Tolerated Pod, in case you're new. My personal one is Natalie K124. If you're on Instagram, that's the easiest way, except for just memorizing it, to get to the Fireside link. That's one of the ways that we bring people together. We're live on Fireside every other Monday. And we do live shows about all the things that we talk about on the podcast. This upcoming one, we're putting 90s male protagonists on trial. Dawson Leary is not dateable, and we're going to tell you why.
I love that.
Thank you. I'm so excited for it.
That's amazing.
I have a blazer. I'm going to be like Sean Hunter's best lawyer, and I'm just going to tear down Dawson Leary.
That's amazing. I love that.
And remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything you're tolerating, including feeling really icky about friendships and knowing that you have to get out, or feeling really icky about maintaining or making new friendships, because we all know you can do it. Smiles are for joy.